In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most compassionate. There was a time when the world was covered in darkness. Ignorance ruled. Knowledge was rare. Justice was fragile. And then, from the silent deserts of Mecca, a light began to rise. A man, Muhammad, peace be upon him, stood with nothing but revelation, truth, and faith. No armies, no wealth, no throne. Yet within decades, his message transformed hearts, nations, and history itself. From Medina, a civilization was born. A civilization built not only on power, but on knowledge, on justice, on mercy, on the worship of one God. Soon, the world witnessed something extraordinary. Cities filled with libraries, hospitals open to all, scholars, scientists, and thinkers leading humanity forward. While others were searching for light, Islam became the light. But today, many ask, what happened to that great civilization? How did the leaders of knowledge fall behind? And more importantly, can we rise again? Tonight, we travel through history, through glory and loss, through lessons and warnings. This is not just history. This is our identity, our legacy, and perhaps our future. This is the story of the rise and fall of Islamic civilization. Before we begin, if you believe that Islamic knowledge should reach more hearts around the world, if you want to learn authentic history, powerful reminders, and inspiring stories about Islam, then take a moment to support this channel. Subscribe, like this video, and share it with your family and friends, because one share might guide someone, one video might change a life, and one reminder might bring someone closer to Allah. Be part of this journey of knowledge and dawah. Click subscribe and let's grow together. The rise and fall of Islamic civilization. Islamic civilization is not merely a story of religion. It is a story of knowledge, of light, of a legacy that once led the world. More than 14 centuries ago, in the silent deserts of Mecca and Medina, a message began that would change human history forever. A message carried by Muhammad, peace be upon him. He had no palace, no army, no worldly power, yet he carried something greater, revelation from Allah. From that message, hearts were transformed. From those hearts, a community was built, and from that community, a civilization was born. A civilization that didn't only pray, but studied, didn't only believe, but discovered, didn't only worship, but built hospitals, universities, libraries, and centers of knowledge. While much of the world struggled in darkness, Islam became a beacon of light. Science flourished, justice was upheld, and faith guided progress. For centuries, Muslims led the world, not by domination, but by knowledge, character, and mercy. But history also reminds us, when faith weakens, when knowledge is abandoned, when unity is broken, even the greatest civilizations can fall. So this is not just a story about the past, it is a mirror for us today. Because the question is not only how did they rise or why did they fall, the real question is, will we rise again? First, expansion and unity. After the passing of Muhammad, peace be upon him, many thought the message of Islam would fade away. But what happened next surprised the world. Under the leadership of the Kekhalifahan Rashidin, Islam did not weaken, it grew stronger, not merely as a religion, but as a civilization.
Within just a few decades, the Muslim world expanded beyond the deserts of Arabia, from the lands of Spaniol in the west to the vast regions of Central Asia in the east. A new force was rising. Then came the era of the Kekhalifahan Umayyah. Cities connected, trade flourished, cultures met. Arabs, Persians, Berbers, Africans, and many others were no longer divided by race or tribe. They were united by faith, united by La ilaha illallah. And this expansion was not simply about conquest. It was not about destroying nations. It was about building societies where law replaced chaos, where justice replaced oppression, where knowledge replaced ignorance. Mosques became schools, markets became centers of ethics, and leaders were servants of the people. For the first time in history, different languages, colors, and cultures stood shoulder to shoulder as one ummah. This was the true strength of Islamic civilization. Not power, not wealth, but unity, justice, and faith. And it was these values that made Islam spread not only across lands, but across hearts.
Second, the golden age of knowledge. Then came a time in history when Islamic civilization did not only expand across lands, it expanded across minds. This was the Golden Age, the peak of intellectual and scientific greatness under the Kekhalifahan Abbasiyah. At the heart of this civilization stood one magnificent city, Baghdad. Baghdad was not just a capital, it was the center of the world's knowledge, a place where scholars, scientists, and thinkers from every background gathered together. And there, a legendary institution was built, Beit Al-Hikmah, the House of Wisdom, a place of translation, research, and discovery. Books from Greece, Persia, India, and beyond were studied, preserved, and improved. Knowledge was not feared, it was celebrated. Here, great minds changed the future of humanity. Ibn Sina revolutionized medicine. Al-Khwarizmi developed algebra and modern mathematics. Al-Farabi shaped philosophy and logic. Ibn Haytham pioneered optics and the scientific method. These were not just Muslim heroes, they were pioneers of human civilization. While much of Europe was still struggling in the Dark Ages, the Muslim world was building hospitals, universities, massive libraries, and systems of science that shaped the modern world we know today. But what made this golden age possible? It was faith. Because in Islam, seeking knowledge is worship, learning is an act of devotion, and science is a path to knowing Allah better. This is how Muslims once led the world, not only with prayer, but with the pen.
Third, the beauty of culture and architecture. Islamic civilization was not only built with strength and not only known for knowledge, it was also built with beauty. Because in Islam, beauty is part of faith. When Muslims built their cities, they did not only think about function, they built with soul, with art, with remembrance of Allah. Across the world, monuments began to rise, not as symbols of pride, but as symbols of worship. In Cordoba stood the magnificent Masjid Agung Cordoba, a forest of arches, light, and harmony. In Granada, the breathtaking Alhambra rose like poetry carved into stone, its walls whispering verses of faith and gratitude. And in Istanbul, Hagia Sophia stood as a masterpiece of devotion and history, connecting heaven and earth beneath its vast dome. But Islamic beauty was not only in buildings, it lived in calligraphy, where the words of the Quran became art, in geometry, where patterns reflected the perfection of creation, in poetry and literature, where hearts spoke about love for Allah. This was a civilization that proved something powerful. True strength is not only military power. True greatness is not only conquest. True civilization is when faith creates beauty, and beauty brings people closer to their Creator. Islam was not merely a ruling force. It became a symbol of refinement, knowledge, and elegance. A civilization that didn't just dominate the world, it inspired it.
Fifth, the fall of a great civilization. But history teaches us something humbling. No civilization, no matter how great, is guaranteed to last forever. Even the brightest light can fade. After centuries of glory, knowledge, and unity, cracks slowly began to appear within the Muslim world. The fall did not begin from outside, it began from within. Internal divisions grew, political conflicts, power struggles, and civil wars. Brother fought brother. Leaders competed for thrones instead of serving their people. And when unity was lost, strength was lost. Then came the external storms. In 1258, the armies of Hulagu Khan swept across the Muslim world and destroyed the magnificent city of Baghdad. Libraries were burned, books were thrown into the river, scholars were killed. Centuries of knowledge vanished in days. But perhaps the most painful loss was not the destruction of buildings, it was the decline of the spirit of learning. Curiosity weakened, ijtihad slowed, debates replaced discovery. Instead of leading the world in knowledge, many Muslims became trapped in conflict and stagnation. Then came colonialism. Foreign powers occupied Muslim lands, dividing borders, taking resources, and weakening the Ummah even further. Until finally, the last great caliphate, the Kesultanan Utsmaniyah, collapsed in 1924, and with it, an era ended. But this story is not told to make us despair. It is told to remind us. Civilizations do not fall because they are weak. They fall when they forget their values, when they abandon faith, knowledge, and unity. And perhaps that lesson is meant for us today.
So what do we learn from all of this? History is not just a story of the past. It is a message, a warning, and a guide for the future. Islamic civilization did not rise by accident. It rose because of knowledge, because of unity, because of character, because of faith. Muslims once understood that seeking knowledge was worship, that serving others was leadership, that good character was strength, and that faith was their foundation. This is why they led the world. But when these values were forgotten, when hearts became divided, when love of dunya became greater than love of Allah, when knowledge was abandoned, even the greatest civilization began to fall. So the question today is not, where is our glory? The real question is, are we ready to rebuild it? Because revival is not a fantasy. It is not just a dream of the past. It can happen again. If we return to the Quran, if we seek knowledge again, if we rebuild unity, if we live Islam not only in words, but in action. Remember, Islam once led the world, not with the sword, but with knowledge, with mercy, with character. Maybe today we feel behind, maybe we feel weak, but history proves something powerful. The light of Islam has never truly disappeared. It only waits for a generation willing to carry it again. Perhaps that generation is us.